We are here for another KSAS talk. This KSAS talk is the panel discussion, as we have already mentioned to all in email list and so forth. Today's panel discussion topic is detachment from attachment, the dual force for attainment from freedom in Bhagavad Gita. And when we are talking the dual force, we can rearrange this topic as the detachment and attachment, the dual force for attainment of freedom in Bhagavad Gita. How the both are the dual force and how we are going to attain the freedom and what is the actual meaning of freedom. Professor Singh, who is going to chair this panel's discussion, will elaborate us. The Bhagavad Gita, one of the most revered texts in our that offers wisdom to address many practical issues such as spirituality and human mind, provides guidance on how to develop one's life, navigating through the life trial and tribulations.
चुकंदर और
One of
गाजर
it
गाजर बीन्स सूप के लिए खत्म हो गई थी, अभी लेके आई है। मैंने चारों का
One of its core teaching is the concept of detachment, Vairagya, which is closely linked to sannyas to attain the ultimate goal of life. In the context of today's world, where stress, emotional turmoil, and attachment to material outcomes are rampant, the premise of the panel discussion is very relevant. This panel discussion will explore the philosophical, psychological, and the practical dimensions of detachment, offering insight for gaining personal wisdom to navigate through the challenges of today's life. The discussion will also deal with the meaning of freedom in fulfilling one's responsibilities while avoiding the emotional conflict in performing those responsibilities. So, for today's discussion, we have very esteemed panel with us. Dr. Sasi Tiwari, ma'am. We welcome you, ma'am. She is the former professor, Maitreyi College, University of Delhi, and the visiting professor at Hindu University of America, Orlando, USA. And she is also the recipient of Rashtrapati Samman in India. The second speaker, Professor Madan Mohan Goyal, sir, who is the co-founder of Global Center of Neuronomics, Kurukshetra, Vice Chancellor, StarX University, Jagannath Jaipur, RGNIYD Government of India, and Pro Vice Chancellor, VKSU State University of Bihar. The third speaker is Dr. R.P. Singh, the former professor, School of Social Science, Center for Philosophy, JNU, and Dean Faculty of Humanities, Religious Studies, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. And the session chair for today's panel discussion, Professor Balram Singh, sir, the former professor, University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, USA, and the president and professor, Institute of Advanced Sciences, USA. And he is also the president of Prime Bio. So, for exploring today's topic, detachment and attachment, the dual force for attaining freedom in Bhagavad Gita, and detachment from attachment, the dual force for attainment from freedom in Bhagavad Gita. I would like to invite Professor Singh for session chair and to explore these topics.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I thought chairs speak at the end, but that's okay. I don't mind speaking. So I think the idea, and there was some understanding that was suggested by Rajkumar about the dual nature of attachment and detachment. What we have been discussing, well, first of all, although I think Alok didn't say that, but this is part of Gita Jayanti program. So Gita Jayanti was only on 11th actually, but that was the beginning. अब गीता जयंती का पूरा टेस्ट करना पड़ेगा ना कि गीता जयंती सही में जो गीता में बताया गया वो महाभारत में हुआ कि नहीं हुआ। ये इसके लिए आज जो है आज का महाभारत का 9th डे Today is the 9th day of the Mahabharata, which is halfway the whole Mahabharata war. So it's a good place to stop and think and take stock of what was really going on. This was the day when Pitama Bhishma was still in charge. For 9th day, he was really in charge of 10 days. 10 of 18 days, I'm told by my colleagues, I think Nilesh and Rupa, that he was like 110 years old at that time. Just imagine, 110 years old holding it for 10 days, this whole entire army, and nobody, and that too with certain restrictions. If he didn't have put himself certain restrictions, what would he have done? And that is an important question and context to consider when we think about this attachment and detachment. He was attached to his family, and he has taken vow not to kill Pandavas. But he will fight. He was very detached. He will fight and do whatever he needs to do. So that was a condition in which he had to deal with. But more importantly, some more facts that day, on the 9th day, it was Abhimanyu's day. He was the one who was really taking charge of, defeating the Kauravas in every possible ways. And of course, everybody else was fighting, but I'm just saying, he is the youngest guy in the battle. He is the oldest guy in the battle. He is the youngest guy in the battle. And they were running the day of that day. I think I looked up all this. I don't remember these things, but that day Pitama Bhisma had done Sarvo Hato Bhadra view. Sarvo Hato Bhadra view, which means square. चारों तरफ से किया था उन्होंने. And Pandavas had done Mandala view. So, we are going to talk about Gita, but Gita has all the details, how you go around, whether it's attachment or detachments. I've been talking a little bit on my own personal note that attachment is, if really we follow the Gita, it is yoga. If you really want the supreme way of attaching yourself, is the yoga. Not just attaching to the families and friends and ego and this. You have to get above all that. And when you have that yoga, then it's a force. It's at least one of the forces. And the second one is detachment. Detachment not in terms of just leaving something, but mastering and leaving something. Mastering and leaving something. That becomes a force. And that we normally call sannyas. So you have this sannyas yoga happening in the battlefield. You can see it. You can see it, armies fighting. You can see it in ourselves fighting. If we do not have anabolism and catabolism, we wouldn't be alive. So this is this duality of force, of attachment and detachment, synthesis and destruction, learning out of the whole process for a force that really has created us. And some people will call it Krishna, some people call it Ishvara, some people call it Brahma, but it is all in us. So this duality is part of us, and we must highlight it in such a way today. And that's why I think the very highly respected, experienced, different backgrounds, Sanskrit, economics, and philosophy. And I am sitting in the middle here because chemistry is the responsible for all the chairs that you are sitting in. Because chemistry, you don't have that. So my job is very, very minor. I'm really looking forward to hearing your views and your presentations, and maybe some questions answered will be at the end. And I will be only all ears. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So we will start from Dr. Sasi Tiwari, ma'am. Now the floor is for you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Alok. In this subject of panel discussion, Detachment is clear, attachment is clear, and the attainment from freedom from is not clear, and the word dual force is not clear to me. So I have asked Alok also, what is the meaning of dual force here? Attainment for freedom or from freedom. Even freedom is for mukti, I think, moksha, and freed to get freedom from this world and the karma cycle of karma, cycle of birth and death. All these are bondages according to philosophy, because people, the individual soul is binded by that. And if he want to get freedom from that, he has to follow any means of getting freedom. There are Gyan Marga, Karma Marga, and other marg also, Dhyana Marga, like that, Bhakti Yoga. So in Gita also these types of ways are recommended and mentioned. And as you know, Sri Krishna was born, or he has taken incarnation of as a human being in the end of Dwapar Yuga. And according to my opinion, when every god who takes a birth, who takes incarnation, they have some purpose, and after fulfilling that purpose, they move on or they return from where they are there. Generally it is in the Vishnu incarnations everywhere. But what about the Sri Krishna's birth? Some people will say that for Kans, killing for Kans, he was born, some other Shishupal, and like that. They will mention a lot things which were held in the lifetime of Sri Krishna. But in my opinion, when the full work or the action for which that God has taken birth is fulfilled, he has to be returned. But in Sri Krishna's case, he is not returning. He is still, and last, and the bravery and the important activity of his life is the war of Mahabharata. And after the war of Mahabharata, he returns back. And what is the important activity in the Mahabharata war? That is the preaching of Gita by Sri Krishna on the first day of the battle in the battlefield. So I wish to say that according to me, he will be leaving after that Mahabharata war. He will be leaving this earth. So this delivery or this gift or Gita is the main purpose of Sri Krishna's incarnation. And I believe in this thing. And in Gita, according to the title, detachment, attachment are to be discussed here. And for getting moksha, all shastras are in our ancient system of knowledge. All shastras are meant for the attainment of moksha. Even Vyakaran Shastra is there for the attainment of moksha. Kam Shastra is there for that. So like that, Gita is also for the attainment of moksha. And for that, the important marg, which is referred here, is karma marg, and that karma marg is originated in the Yajurveda. Not in first time it is not coming in the Gita, but it is in the Yajurveda also, in the 14th chapter of Yajurveda. Kurvanevi karmani jijivishet shatam sama evam tvai nanithe to asti na karma lipyate nare. Here the karma lipyate nare is also mentioned, which means if you want to live a long life, 100 years life, then always continuously you have to be indulged in actions, activities. And if you will do like this, then karma will not be attached with you. लिपते means lip जाना, लेप करना, लिप जाना, चिपक जाना. So the term lipati is mentioned here, and again in the Mahabharata, in the Bhishma Parva, in the Gita, we find asakti term used by Shri Krishna. And again, as our chair was mentioning, the term asakti and other terms also, we find there sang, sango astu akarmani. In the 49th month shlok, fourth charan. This is written here, sangoastu akarmani. Akarma में भी संग ना हो. संग माने आसक्ति ना हो. So what is the meaning of sang? Saj dhatu is there. And asakti, sak dhatu is there. Again that same dhatu. Sakt means chipakna. Saj means chipakna. जिसको हम लोग attachment बोल रहे हैं. And we use email and attachment also. So attachment is which is attached with something. And karma is not attached. Karma should not be attached. This is the preaching in this Gita. And how it will be happening. This is the originality. This is the original thought of Sri Krishna. For that he is remembered in all the philosophies of our ancient wisdom. So moksha is the ultimate goal, and for that there are so many ways. Shri Krishna refers also about Dhyan Marga from Sankhya Yoga. He says it Sankhya Yoga. And firstly, in the very beginning, he explains Sankhya Yoga. From Sankhya, you will know about the immortality of Atman, and your shok will be removed. So this is the ultimate last point. But if you are not able to do Sankhya Yoga, तब क्या करना है? Then you will have to do Karma Marga. As in the second chapter of Gita, this is meant. Sankhya Yoge to Imam Shuru. और अगर नहीं आता है सांख्य योग समझ में, तो फिर कर्म मार्ग मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ. इसका मतलब दैट इज नीचे का मार्ग है, दैट इज अपर मार्ग. और फिर कर्म मार्ग में वो बताते हैं कि सकाम कर्म करोगे तो भी ये फायदे होंगे. सकाम कर्म से जो फल प्राप्त होते हैं वो तो होते ही हैं. निष्काम कर्म से जो फल प्राप्त होते हैं वो फल तो प्राप्त होते ही हैं जो कर्म के होते हैं. क्योंकि every action has effect. Every action has fruits. उनका फल होता है, हर कर्म का फल होता है. माली बगीचे में पेड़ लगाता है, जो पेड़ लगाता है उसका वो फल पैदा होता है जब उसका टाइम आता है. इसी तरह से मनुष्य जो कर्म करता है, जो भी कर्म करता है उसका फल उसको प्राप्त होता है, वो उसका फल उसको मिलता है. लेकिन कृष्ण जी क्या कह रहे हैं? वो कह रहे हैं अगर इफ यू विल डू दैट एक्शन विदाउट अटैचमेंट ऑफ व्हाट? विदाउट अटैचमेंट टू द फ्रूट ऑफ द एक्शन. कर्म फल के से लिप्त हुए बिना अगर कर्म को करते हो, देन यू विल गेट अनदर रिजल्ट, अनदर गुड fruit, and that is you will be detached from that. आसक्ति पूर्वक करोगे तब भी फल मिलेगा, अनासक्ति पूर्वक करोगे तब भी फल मिलेगा. कर्म का चित्त निर्मल हो जाएगा. कर्म मार्ग से अनासक्ति पूर्वक कर्म करने से चित्त की शुद्धि होती है. And that is not ultimate result. Ultimate result is jnanam. Then from the chitta shuddhi you will get attainment, you will attain knowledge, and from knowledge you will be getting moksha, and the moksha is the ultimate goal. सो फाइनली ज्ञानात रीते न मुक्ति, ज्ञान के बिना मुक्ति नहीं होती है। ये शंकराचार्य का, जो अद्वैतवादी हैं, उनका सिद्धांत है। और मुक्ति ज्ञान के बिना नहीं होती है। और अगर ज्ञान क्या चीज है, उसको भी एक लाइन में समझ सकते हैं कि सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन इज नॉलेज। अपने को जानना नॉलेज है, सेल्फ को जानना नॉलेज है, इंडिविजुअल सेल्फ को, नॉट दैट सेल्फ, इंडिविजुअल सेल्फ, कैपिटल सेल्फ नहीं। तो ये उन्होंने कर्म मार्ग का फल बताया कि, और कर्म योग का फल बताया। अब बहुत से लोग हैं, मुझे लगता है हम लोग भी बहुत किसी किसी स्टेज में निष्काम कर्म ही कर रहे हैं, और हमें पता भी नहीं होता हम निष्काम कर्म कर रहे होते हैं। लेकिन उनका फल तो मिलना ही है, क्योंकि वो नियम है। और निष्काम कर रहे हैं, इसलिए उसका जो फल होना है, निष्काम कर्म करने का जो फल होना है, वो अलग से वो मिलेगा। तो इसलिए यहाँ पर संग, शक्ति, आसक्ति, दीज आर द टर्म फॉर अटैचमेंट। एंड फॉर अनासक्ति, डिटैचमेंट, अनासक्ति, असंग, असंगो अस्तु, तुम्हारा असंग कर्म ना करने में भी ना हो जाए, ये चौथा उसका कर्मयोग की जो तो ये चीजें ध्यान में रखने की है कि बहुत माइन्यूटली उन्होंने कर्म योग का विवरण हमारे आगे रखा है। फिर उसके बाद वो ये भी बताते हैं कि कर्म योग करेंगे कैसे। एक्चुअली बहुत सुंदर तरीके से, कभी कभी रोचक ढंग से भी गीता में विवरण दिए गए हैं। जैसे कि श्री कृष्ण कहते हैं कि सब सब लोग कर्म तो करेंगे ही, कर्म नहीं करेंगे तो क्या करेंगे, कर्म तो करेंगे ही, बिना कर्म के कोई नहीं रह सकता, और यहाँ तक कि मैं भी नहीं रह सकता। मुझे तो कोई प्रारब्ध कर्म भोगने को नहीं थे, फिर भी मैं तो ऐसे अवतार लेकर आया हूँ, फिर भी मैं लगातार कर्म करता हूँ, और कर्म का फल भी मेरे जो भी इकट्ठे हो रहे होंगे। तो ये जो जीवन है, इसमें लगातार कर्म करना ही पड़ता है, मनुष्य को कर्म करने ही पड़ते हैं। तो क्यों ना वो इस प्रकार से कर्म करे जो हमने कर्म करने की सिद्धांत या थ्योरी बताई है। जैसे वो उदाहरण देते हैं कि यहाँ पर युद्ध हो रहा है, और युद्ध में एक कौरव है, ये इधर पांडव है, या तो वो जीतेंगे या वो जीतेंगे, दे विल गेट सम रिजल्ट ऑफ देयर एक्शन। I have to do nothing from both of them, from both of their fight for their war. But I am even working here as a charioteer, and the charioteer has no result. He is not attached to any result because he is doing a service, he is doing a नौकरी कर रहा है वो। तो उसको तो कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है कि ये जीते कि वो जीते। तो लाइक दैट सारथी जो है, वो बहुत अच्छी तरह से परिकल्पना की गई है गीता में उस करेक्टर के लिए। इवन इन द लास्ट एक्टिविटी वो निष्काम काम कर रहे हैं। इसी तरह से बचपन से जो लोग बहुत क्रिटिसिज्म करते हैं, श्री कृष्ण जी चोर थे, ये थे, बचपन में लोगों की हड्डियां फोड़ देते थे, तो जितने भी उनके एक्शन है सारे निष्काम है, कर्म है, क्योंकि उनको उसका कुछ मिलना नहीं था। उनको तो बच्चों को, दूसरों को बटर खिलाना था, दही पिलाना था। और ऐसे ही पूरे जीवन में जहां पर वो आगे बढ़ते हैं, पीछे का वो छोड़ देते हैं। ही इज नॉट अटैच्ड। आपको पता होगा कि वृंदावन छोड़ने के बाद 11 साल में या जितने साल में भी छोड़ा, मथुरा गए, मथुरा में जाने के बाद से लेकर अंतिम द्वारका में जाने तक, ही नेवर रिमेम्बर्ड राधा, never remembered Radha. Even Radha was always remembering him, but he was not remembering because he never sees back. मथुरा में कंस को मारने के बाद आगे जाते हैं, फिर पीछे का नहीं देखते, ना ही उसके अटैच्ड होते हैं, कभी नाम भी नहीं लेते, अटैच्ड भी नहीं होते, कभी देवकी माँ यशोदा माँ नहीं बोलते। राधा ने एक जगह कभी कहा है कि तुमने इतने लोगों के नाम गीता में पढ़े हैं, सुनाए हैं, प्रथम अध्याय में कितने नाम आए हुए हैं, लेकिन कभी भी तुम राधा का नाम वहां पर ले लेते तो तुमने वो भी नहीं लिया। तो उनको अटैचमेंट किसी से नहीं है। और my final sentence about this is that is why he is able to give the preaching of Nishkam Karma Yoga. The person who has this quality can only explain that. Secondly, why Arjun is getting this Gita preaching? Again, the same logic you have to use there. Arjun is not saying that he is not fight due to the fear of death or due to the fear of defeat. He is not afraid of that things. He is not afraid of any type of fear. He will be died or his brother will be died. Nothing. He is not worried about that. But he is worried about the insult or death of their elders, Bhishma and Drona. भीष्म द्रोण अहम संख्ये, उनको संख्य युद्ध में मैं मार नहीं सकता, मैं उनके प्रति अपने बाण उठा नहीं सकता, उसकी ये चिंता है। और इसीलिए वो लड़ाई को छोड़ देना चाहता है। ना योत्सव्य, मैं नहीं लड़ूंगा और रथ पे बैठ जाता। कृष्ण जी उसको क्या कह रहे हैं? तस्मात् युद्धस्य भारत। वो कुछ भी बोलते हैं उसके बाद कहते हैं इसलिए तुम युद्ध करो, इसलिए तुम युद्ध करो। वो भी उसको कुछ और नहीं कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो युद्ध करने से मना कर रहा है, इसलिए युद्ध करने को कह रहे हैं। और अगर अर्जुन लड़ाई करते करते रुकता, या कि वो डर के मारे लड़ने से मना करता, या कोई और वजह होती, तो उसको कृष्ण जी का कहना नहीं बनता था। देन ही कैन नॉट से एनीथिंग। और अगर वो लड़ने को उतारू ही होता, तब भी वो उसको कहते नहीं। मतलब ए पर्सन इफ ही इज वर्किंग सम, ही इज डूइंग सम वर्क, he will never be said that you fight. Or the person who is fearful from the fight will never be asked to do that work. जो कर रहा है उसको भी नहीं कहा जाएगा, जो नहीं करने को कह रहा है उसको भी नहीं कहा जाएगा। तो कहा जाएगा किसको? ये कार्य कि तुम लड़ाई करो, ये कार्य तुम करो, उसी को कहा जाएगा जो करते करते उसको छोड़ने की बात करता है। He is able to work that, but he is, due to some reasons, he wants to leave that work. So Arjun is the component, student for getting this उपदेश। और अगर वो उस उपदेश को प्राप्त करेगा तो आगे भी लोगों को बताएगा। तो इस तरह से स्टूडेंट भी बिल्कुल प्रॉपर है, टीचर भी बिल्कुल प्रॉपर है, और सब्जेक्ट भी बिल्कुल प्रॉपर है। और गीता में अटैचमेंट से नॉन अटैचमेंट की बात की जाती है। आपको ध्यान होगा वो 2 श्लोक हैं जिसमें कहा गया है कि पुरुष विषयों का ध्यान करते करते संगस्तेषु उपजायता, संग हो जाता है, उसकी आसक्ति बढ़ जाती है। वो जिन विषयों का ध्यान करता है, बेटे का करता है तो बेटे से, घर का करता है तो घर से, जिस चीज का भी वो लगातार ध्यान करता रहता है उसके प्रति उसकी संग यानी आसक्ति बढ़ जाती है। संगा संजायते कामः, संग से उसका कामना बढ़ती है, उसकी डिजायर टू गेट दैट, ये बढ़ता है। संगा संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो भी जायते, काम से क्रोध आता है। तीसरी स्टेज है ये। क्यों क्रोध आता है? क्योंकि अगर वो वस्तु उसको नहीं मिलती है तो उसको क्रोध आता है। संगात संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो भी जायते, क्रोधात् भवति समोहः। देन फ्रॉम क्रोध, फ्रॉम एंगर, illusion is there, samoha is there, his mind is disturbed, his brain is disturbed. Samohat smriti vibhrama. If there is samoha, if there is illusion, he will be getting memory loss. All the memories which are in his brain, he may lose them. Then samohat smriti vibhrama, smriti vibhrama buddhinasha. And if memory is lost, the person has lost all his brain. And finally, nashati, buddhi nashat pranashati. from the loss of brain, he himself will be lost. Yeah, he himself will be perished. So these are the 8 steps, one by one, going towards downfall, and all is due to sang, due to asakti. And if the person does all these things, worldly affairs, all worldly affairs is done by the pupil without any attachment, he will be getting good results. So it is, according to me, as I think, Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, performing Nishkam Karma Yoga is not very difficult. Sometimes it may be difficult, but generally it is not difficult. Sri Krishna has presented its example. He is its best example. From the childhood till Dwarkadhish, he is Nishkam Karma Yogi. That is why he is called Yogeshwar Krishna. And this is my humble submission. Namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you very much. You have beautifully explained all the details of this topic, and उसको दार्शनिक रूप से कैसे हम समझ सकते हैं, उसको व्यवहार से समझ सकते हैं. आपने पूरा काम क्रोध से किस प्रकार आगे बढ़ती हुई प्रक्रिया, खुद के नष्ट होने तक की प्रक्रिया है, भगवान कृष्ण ने साइकोलॉजिकली पूरा एक्सप्लेन किया है. एक बात जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण रही, जिसकी चर्चा हम लोग गीता भूत वर्तमान भविष्य में टीसीएन मीडिया के कार्यक्रम के तहत करते रहे हैं, और प्रोफेसर सिंह इस बात को एम्फसाइज करते हैं कि जिस प्रकार आपने कहा कि भगवान श्री कृष्ण का अपने परिवार सहित अपनी किसी भी प्रकार के संबंध या कार्य में किसी प्रकार का अटैचमेंट नहीं रहा. उन्होंने किया सब कुछ, लेकिन जब वो छोड़ दिए तो पीछे छूटे हुए चीज के प्रति उनका कोई आकर्षण नहीं रहा, अटैचमेंट नहीं रहा. तो अटैचमेंट से जो डिटैचमेंट की ये यात्रा है कर्म के माध्यम से, उसी को टीसीएन मीडिया के प्रोग्राम में प्रोफेसर सिंह अपने तरह से एक्सप्लेन करते हुए कहते हैं कि वही संन्यास है, कि जब हम कार्य करते हुए किसी चीज को स्थापित करके आगे बढ़ जाते हैं तो हम संन्यास भाव को प्राप्त कर जाते हैं. आगे आपके व्याख्यान के और डिटेल्स को सेशन चेयर कर रहे हैं प्रोफेसर सिंह, वो आगे एक्सप्लेन करेंगे. लेकिन अब हम चूंकि अब इकोनॉमिक्स की दृष्टि से, अर्थशास्त्र की दृष्टि से हम कैसे डिटैचमेंट, अटैचमेंट या सोशल नॉर्म्स को कैसे देख सकते हैं, सोशल बिहेवियर को कैसे देख सकते हैं, इसके लिए मैं इनवाइट करूंगा प्रोफेसर एम गोयल सर, जो न्यूरोनॉमिक्स की दृष्टि से कैसे हम समाज को और डिटैचमेंट अटैचमेंट को देख सकते हैं. ओवर टू यू.
Thank you, Dr. Alok, learned panel of scholars. Let me confess that I'm basically Sanskrit illiterate, but being a resident student and teacher of Kurukshetra, I always say that we have to imbibe the values from Gita in present times. And I'm little allergic when we talk about Mahabharata and talking of that scenario which took place in that time. But my conceptualization of neonomics is the modern lens of Gita, and sometimes I call Gita-based neonomics, sometimes I call it Gita-inspired neonomics. And let me tell you that basically I have developed this conceptualization, Gita-inspired neonomics, from LIC logo, Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam. Your welfare is our responsibility, is the claim of LIC of India. But let me confess that none of the LIC agent could prevail upon me for getting a LIC policy till today. But the moment I understood this from shloka number 22 of chapter 9 from Gita, where Lord Krishna says, if you believe me completely, absolutely, and wholeheartedly, whatever you need, that I'll give you, whatever you have, that I care of. Meaning thereby, needs have to be understood in right perspective. Rather, we have to create needs and say no to greed. In that perspective, I have titled my presentation today as Detachment and True Freedom, Harmonizing Wisdom with Gita-inspired Neonomics. Let me tell you, Neonomics is a common sense approach, ethical in nature, spiritual in nature, environmental friendly, and non-violence in economics. And so far my understanding goes to detachment, I would like to say that it is yes to needs and attachment, no to greed. Meaning thereby, in practical implications of Gita, in our new modern lens of needonomics, detachment means yes to need and no to greed. And with this perspective, I have, although I have a PPT, but let me explain certain things to you. Bhagavad Gita, the heart of Krishna, offers timeless wisdom on leading a life of purpose, balance, and freedom. Among its profound teachings, detachment from attachment, Vairagya, stands out as a pathway to liberation. This principle, when aligned with the modern concept of needonomics, a paradigm emphasizing the fulfillment of needs rather than the accumulation of excess, presents a compelling framework for personal and societal transformation. We have to understand this Gita inspired needonomics in totality as consumers, producers, distributors, traders, and policymakers, even the politicians, both in power and opposition, with responsibility, accountability, and morality. I call it RAM. Responsibility, accountability, and morality. And as I told to you that this is a common sense approach. So while giving a serious thought to the issue of detachment and attachment, I have come out with detachment means yes to need and no to greed is detachment under needonomic school of thought. So what we have to do, why we should do, when we should do, where we should do, for whom, should ponder over in right perspectives when learning something from Gita. So I have basically conceptualized the domain, 360-degree domain of needonomics as needo consumption by consumers, who should go in for basically mindful consumption, judicious consumption. It is not minimal consumption, but here I must draw your kind attention that basically there are people who are at a lower level of consumption, their marginal capacity to consume is very high, then their consumption we have to increase. And there are people who are having overconsumption. And let me tell you, to bridge the gap between the poor and rich and practically finding out the solution of the problems of starvation. As you know, the rate of progress in starvation is more than the rate of progress in overconsumption. We have to understand and adopt this concept of needo consumption by the consumers of all states and creed. Similarly, we have to go in for needo production by the producers. Producers should produce those things which are required by the consumers, and that can solve many of the problems prevailing in the society today. There are countries who are suffering from recession, and recession is not practically because of supply chain management. It is because people don't have purchasing power, they don't have buyers. So we have to think in terms of needo distribution by the traders, and we have to go in for exports. So to achieve success in our endeavors in all aspects, Nido convert monkey mind to monk mind as engagement of soul in alive body as goal of life. I'm just pondering over this issue in right perspective, that basically how to convert this monkey mind. You know, when we go in for attachment, it is basically a monkey mind. And I can best tell you that although we talk of these days using artificial intelligence, and we are practically, I have written one blog, Gita imparts spiritual intelligence more than Chat GPT of AI era. Shashiji will agree with me that these days when we have any problem, we go to Chat GPT and try to find out the solution. But I have experienced and experimented many times. When I have a problem, I open any page of Gita and find out the solution, meaning thereby great epic is more than Chat GPT with spiritual intelligence. This is what is monk mind we have to develop, in the sense that engagement of soul in alive body, which is the goal of life, we have to adopt. So practical aspects to embrace detachment and needonomics, I have developed some points. We have to cultivate self-awareness. We have to reflect on the distinction between needs and excessive desires as greed in daily life. We have to practice gratitude for what we have rather than expecting more, and more. This is basically not fitting into the framework of Kaun Banega Crorepati. We have to simplify life. We have to reduce dependence on material possessions by adopting a mindful lifestyle, focusing on experiences, relationships, and personal growth. We have to practice selfless actions, engaging in actions without expecting rewards, as advised by the Gita, Yogasa Karamashu Kaushalam, 2.50 verse of Gita. Yoga is excellence in action, supports sustainable practices, align personal and community choices with sustainability. Here, I was reading something today and I thought it that when talking in terms of detachment, we must basically have digital detox by converting this monkey mind to monk mind practically for sustainability, which is required today in the country in a big manner. And we have to choose products and services that prioritize needs over luxury. We have to foster spiritual growth, incorporating meditation, mindfulness, and introspection into our routine to develop inner peace and sense of purpose. So, in case we want to learn something practical from Gita in terms of this modern conceptualization of neuronomics, we have to be street smart. Street smart means that we must understand the environment around us. Today, as a consumer, producer, distributor, and trader, we have to be transparent, responsive, action oriented. We should be ethical and, above all, simple. Mahatma Gandhi used to talk of simple living and high thinking, but my Gita, my guru says that simple living and no thinking. No thinking does not mean that we should not think, but we should think of those things which are in our control, and that is the message of Gita practically, that we have a right on our actions, not on results. So while talking in terms of practically adopting this Gita inspired neuronomics today is both necessary and sufficient for getting real freedom. Real freedom can come if we confine to needs and say no to greed. To my terminology, detachment is practically yes to uh, needs, and attachment is no to greed. Practically, that can solve many of the problem. And we have practically seen in equanimity in yoga in Gita Shloka 2.48, which reminds us the balancing and detachment are key to a fulfilled life. When coupled with neuronomics, this wisdom provides a holistic approach to addressing the personal and global challenges of our time. By focusing on what truly matters and letting go of excessive dependencies, individuals and societies can achieve sustainable happiness and freedom. The synthesis of this ancient wisdom and modern economics serves as a guide to a balanced, purposeful, and liberated existence, one that benefits not just individual but the entire planet. I submit to this great panel of scholars that I have read something on basically gracefully aging, and I have come out with a blog, Art of Aging Gracefully, Neuronomics for the Golden Years. And I consider that when we talk in terms of this uh, Sanyasashram or Vanaprasthashram, I believe that the terminology of neuronomics talks of Anandashram. And I said that detachment and engagement. Engagement in the sense that we should engage ourselves with the ultimate goal of spiritual mathematics, 1 plus 1 equal to 1, which is yoga in my terminology as spiritual mathematics. And that is engagement is required, and that makes our this old age as Ananda Ashram, converting homes into living in homes like ashram and living in ashram like home. Probably that can sort out many of the problems. So we need to become street smart, simple, moral, action oriented, responsive, and transparent for fostering neo-tourism, where earnings surpass expenditure and we work more for society than ourselves. So hopefully I am able to prevail upon my audience today to talk about the conceptualization of detachment and attachment for freedom in the modern terminology of Gita-inspired neonomics. And I believe that the practical aspect of Gita talks of detachment means yes to needs and attachment, no to greed, practically sort out the practical problems of today. The problems today in the society prevailing is because of greed, selfishness, your king Drishtrashtra, who was basically a blind king, selfish and talking in terms of converting Dharamkshetra into Kurukshetra, and he could not understand anything from Gita practically. So, in the modern terminology, we have to adopt this conceptualization of detachment and attachment as needs and greeds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And you have explained very well the neonomics school of thoughts and the neonomics theory from Yogakshamam Vahamayam, and now it's reflecting like Sarvabhut Hite Rata. So we have some questions. We have one question from Professor Singh, but after the initial speech of Professor R.P. Singh, sir, we will take the panel discussion. These are the questions. So now we have another esteemed philosopher, Professor R.P. Singh, sir, to talk the philosophical point of view and the practical point of view of this detachment, attachment, and freedom. Now, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Alok, and thank you, Professor Balramji, and all the panelists. So I'm the last speaker, so I'm rather in a advantage and disadvantage position. Advantage in the sense that most of the themes have been already discussed and from different perspectives, and disadvantage because there is very little left for me to make some reflection on it. So what I will do, I'll take up some of the issues which are there and try to clarify it philosophically, because these concepts, whether it is related to practical life or spirituality, human mind, attachment, detachment, freedom, and these are all very contested concepts. It doesn't have one meaning only. So as the situations change, from the ancient times to the medieval period to the modern days, these concepts, they gain different meanings in the course of time. And it's important also because if the concepts are stagnant, fixed, then things will not move. Some of the problem is that people think that religion doesn't change. If religion changes, then social problems automatically get solved because it changes with the requirement of the society. So we have to see that these concepts, we still make reflection on it, and very deeply in philosophy we make a reflection. We give a reference point to Bhagavad Gita and many other sources also, which are there in the epics and the Puranas and the Vedas and the Upanishads everywhere. But then we have to look at what could be the contemporaneity of these concepts. How do we use it? Two forces, attraction and repulsion, are there in the nature. So, and it's very natural kind of an inclination, and everybody has it, and it has to be there, attraction and repulsion. So, attraction for, certain things, if the attraction is there, then we have to see what kind of an action is to be performed and what kind of knowledge is required, whether devotion is needed, sacrifice is needed, sympathy is needed, empathy is needed, very many factors which are involved into it. So, and they all play their role into it. And renunciation is also there. So what kind of renunciation? Would you like to become like Hatha Yogi? That you just renounce everything? That's not possible. Gita also doesn't teach that you should not become hatha yogi. And then you have to see what extent you can have some kind of middle path. So let me just place my cards very simply. First, that if I am asked what is a man, for instance, what is a human being, for instance. So we generally find that with every human being, there are certain purusarthas and certain vikaras. So dharma, artha, kam, and moksha, these are the purusarth. And then you have kam, krodha, lobha, moha, mad, ahankar, 6 vikaras. The tension lies, in these things. And these are natural inclinations. And everybody has it. But now we need some kind of a knowledge, some kind of devotion, sense of sacrifice, sympathy, empathy to deal with all these issues. So as far Purusarth is concerned, then we have Trivarga, Dharma, Artha and Kam, or Kam, Artha and Dharma kind of a thing. So this is called achievements in life. And moksha is the attainment or the fulfillment. So it's a 2-tier value system that we have, Abhyuday and Nishreyas kind of a thing. So in the achievements, we need to have a desire for an action, and when you have a desire for an action, then you need some kind of financial things, artha. So kama, artha, and then dharma, that rightful desire. Because if everybody has a desire for an action and also the economic support, they will come in clash with others. In order to avoid the clash, you need dharma. It will give the right direction for the action. This thing first has to be done. You cannot get detached from it. You have to do it. And you have to do it with knowledge, with a sense of devotion, sacrifice, sympathy, empathy, all kinds of virtues which are there have to be implemented into it, practiced accordingly. Only then, once this is done, then you can go towards Nishreyas. So if you directly go to any kind of detachment, then it will be a kind of a very risky game. And people become hypocrites also therein. So so basic thing is that first get involved, do the purusartha, and do the actions. And every action has a sense of responsibility, it has justice, it has fruit. Professor Sasi Tiwari has said that fruits are there in the actions themselves. And also there is some kind of security in every action. Responsibility, justice, fruit, security, everything is there in the actions. So you do it. And Gita said that you have got a right to act, rightful and action. So this has to be understood very carefully. Action requires knowledge. It requires a kind of involvement, attachment. Attachment is not all the time bad. Many times it is good. If you are not attached with anything, then what kind of person you are with that. So you can see it even in the Mahabharata, in the Gita, we have found that even the divine being has human weaknesses, getting attached with certain actions, revenges, and everything else, which are very human in nature. And one needs to have it, but then it has to be guided by knowledge and some kind of sympathy, empathy. An additional element which has come up in Mahabharata and also in the Bhagavad Gita that people have taken vows, that I will do it. And that has created a lot of issues in that. So while taking the Bhishma Pratigya, he did not think of what kind of Pratigya he is taking up. And there was a problem. And so is the Pratigya with everybody else. So they did not think what kind of repercussions are there to this kind of a vow. And then they are entangled into it. So, this thing needs to be, seriously reflected upon. Now, there is a term which is known as spirituality, which has come up very substantially in the write-up and in the discussion also. We generally, find some kind of a analysis of it. So let me just do two things. One, that how spirituality is different from religion on the one hand, and also dharma on the other hand. Spirituality is not a very simple term. It's a simple, but it's very complicated. Most of the simple terms are very complicated. So, like if we take up religion, for instance, then religion has, it has performed three functions in the world. It has tried to give an explanation of the world. How did the world come into existence? Creation or whatever, and then the commandments and everything else which came up, on the basis of which there is an explanation of the world. Second thing, that religion has given rise to values of sacrifice, brotherhood, love, compassion, and everything. Very noble values have all evolved in the religion. And the third thing is that in every religion we find there is aesthetics sense also involved into it. Sense of beauty is there. Though the ideology is within the fabric of religion itself, that kind of, but music, painting, art, architecture, it is very profoundly there in religion. On the other hand, if we look at spirituality, so spirituality doesn't have all these things. It is a very simple kind of a thing, simple in the sense that it is one, and it is substantive, and it is integrated. So integral approach, that personality is integrated, and it is substantive and simple. It doesn't have any norms. Spirituality is rather in search for the norms. It doesn't begin with the norms the way religion begins with, do's and don'ts. Religion has some kind of these preoccupations, but in spirituality we are always in search for the norms, and there is no fear element in spirituality, which is there in the religion. Because if you look at the Jewish religion, I know dominating God kind of a thing, fear element, that do it, heaven and hell kind of a conceptions is not at all there in the spirituality. There is love, and there is complete lack of freedom. Spirituality is also not a doctrine or set of truths. Rather, it is in search for the truth. You search for it on your own. There is no fixed criterion that you are a spiritual being. You are the spirit and you search for it. It's your job. Apodipo bhav, kind of conceptions. And there is absolutely no place for hell or heaven. One is one's own refuge. Karma and punishments of the karma are all there in the religion. Religion, has all kinds of these things. Spirituality doesn't have it. Let us see how spirituality is different from dharma, kind of a thing. So, our religion and dharma are also different, kind of a thing, because religion in the Judeo-Christian tradition, all the three Semitic religions, so, and dharma has a different kind of a connotation. So, in the dharma, so it is some kind of a Sanatan element is there, that it follows the eternal law of the universe, some kind of perennial duties which are there in the dharma, and all kinds of dharmas are there. And dharma, in fact, if I remember correctly, maybe Professor Shashi Tiwari can correct me, that while articulating Rita in the Rig Veda, the concept of dharma comes up, that it is the duty of the Purush to protect the Ritas. Dharma rakshat rakshita, kind of a thing. Because from the Rita, nature is a gift from the Ritas, and it is the duty of the Purush to protect the Rita. So cosmocentric approach emerges very substantially. So this is not there in the religion. It's prophetic in nature, with the faith in God, and it is an institution, a kind of place. Religion is an institution. So, but dharma is something which is related to our practical life. Once these terms are clear, then we have to see certain terms like uh, reason for incarnation, of which Professor Shashi Tiwari emphasized very substantially, that divine being is born. So there was a reason for it, and he said that dharma is on the decline. So I want to re-establish the dharma, kind of a thing. But it's very general. So, and there are certain forces which are propagating adharma kind of a thing that has to be eliminated, and the job is very tiresome. And then people who are propagating and people who are victim of it, they have to be enlightened, then so that they can fight against all these things. So action karma part of it, on the one hand it binds, on the other hand it liberates us also. So because if liberation is attained without any action, that will not be sustainable, kind of a thing. And people, it is generally said that one needs to have the knowledge aspect of it, knowledge of one's own self. So this is capital self and the individual self. So in the write-up, in fact, Dr. Alok has talked about mind, the role of mind also. So like he said that speech of human mind. So mind is a difficult term to get delineated. So in the Shiva Sankalpa Sukta of the Sukta, so there we find an articulation of it, that mind is very near, mind is very far, mind is victory, mind is defeat, mind is love, mind is hatred, mind is, they say everything. And some metaphors have also been used, charioteer and other things, to substantiate the position that how mind controls about it. But if we take up the Vedanta perspective on it, then we have the Antakarana, within which, we have the Gyanendriya, Karmendriya, and then Manas, and then Buddhi, Pragya, Ahankar, even Chitta, all these elements. But then finally we have got the witness consciousness, the Sakshin. Sakshin is the one which is the self with capital S. Everything else has the elements of self, but the small s, kind of a thing. But the difference is only of the degrees, not of the kind. We are not splitted. There is no dualism, in fact. This duality, Professor Shashi Tiwari expressed her apprehension, and I share it, that yes, duality is not there, differences are there, differences are of the degrees and not of the kind. Even Vyavharik, Pradibhasik and Paramarthik, the difference is only of the degrees. Jagra, Swapna, Susupti and Turiya, the difference is only of the degrees. Something is more intense, more illuminating, kind of a thing. So there is a kind of, integral approach, which has been, placed very thoroughly. And action means that you identify a person on the basis of the verb and not anything else. What kind of, action he can do. And there are many people who were struggling for it, like Ekalabhya. He can do, but he did not get the recognition. Karda, he can do, but he could not get the recognition. So there is a tension that kind of in the fabric itself, there is a tension. And that is something which has to be, unfolded. Now about the stress of the today's world, of which Dr. Alok in the brief write-up has, put some emphasis on it. Where does the stress come from? Professor Balram Singh is a scientist. He knows that stress comes from the pressure. You put the pressure, there will be a stress. So, and if there is no pressure, and sometimes he used to call me or to tell me that You should put pressure on me, then I'll do it. So, and I feel that no, once you know that you have to do it, then you do it. Kind of a thing, yeah. No need for putting the pressure on anybody, because if you put the pressure, then people, become stressed. But then you have to see that what kind of pressure is there. Is it good or bad? There are certain pressures which we always need. There are good pressures, without which our life cannot survive. Not all the pressures are bad, and not all the stresses are bad. There are good stresses. One needs to have it. But then you have to, use your wisdom, your knowledge, your place, and your responsibilities accordingly. So sense of discrimination, analysis, understanding, regulative mechanism, and knowledge, and all these things are required there. Attachment is not all the time attached. There is no general term like attachment. And there is no general term like detachment, that you are detached from everything. In fact, attachment is needed. There are good attachments. There are many people with whom we love to get attached with them. But then we have to be vigilant about it. That, how good it is for the individual, for the society, for the family, and for the nation. These days, in fact, everything is so global. Then your attachment also expands its horizon. I think Gita is all the more important in today's world because the horizon has expanded to a very large extent, and ideas can have to be developed in that direction. And finally, in the write-up, there's a sense of responsibility which has been highlighted. So responsibility is, multifaceted. Responsibility towards oneself, towards one's profession, the job you are doing, whether you are professional enough to execute it properly, responsibility towards the institutions, to the society, to everybody, because responsibility is, of many kinds. Performing all the responsibilities and then understanding the constraints, proceeding in that direction with the sense of realizing freedom. So freedom is an appreciation of those responsibilities, those constraints, not any escape from it, that I've finished the job and now I've got nothing to do. Yeah, even Buddha also, after he had attained nirvana, he came to the world and he said that there's no difference between nirvana and the world. So I'll perform the work, but I will not get attached with anything. I'll do the job, and I know the knowledge component of it. I'll proceed accordingly, but the attachment get, that once it is not done, then you get frustrated, and then all kinds of depressions which come up is something which has to be avoided if we have this attitude. So a kind of psychotherapy is also there. So with Bhagavad Gita, that's why it is called Upadesa. Upadesa basically means counseling. So the counseling element is also very profoundly developed, but the counseling is needed towards your responsibilities and your search for freedom, because these are the two antinomies within which, and I do not take any kind of dual approach here again. I always believe that freedom is an appreciation of responsibilities, constraints, and necessities around us, acting in accordance with that in order to realize freedom. So not that, that I have got 2 words or 3 words within which we find that this is the kind of, freedom is there and the whole world is something which is full of restraints. So these are some of the submissions. Basically, I have tried to clarify on my own the way it is there. And I think still we are in and around 4th chapter and the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Though, of course, these ideas are, in the central to the whole composition of Bhagavad Gita. But this has been, explicitly with knowledge, sannyasa kind of a thing. Sanyasa is another term. So nyasa foundation, a term which has been derived from archaeology. So before you construct any building, you lay down the foundation. And foundation is equal to all. Otherwise, it will create earthquake, kind of a thing. So these days, earthquake resistance kind of a thing they are doing, and they have their own mechanism of doing it. So the nyasa, the foundation has to be equal. So it also implies in social life that that a child-centric education should be there. It should be universal, and one kind of an education for all. And maybe in the NEP 2020, some such vision is there, enshrined into it, that this is how it has to be proceeded. But then once the basic foundation is something which is equal, then everything else could be something uh, floor wise, and they are done in accordance with the requirements. There is no problem about it. But at the root, we all should have something which is very equal kind of a nyasa. Foundation has to be equal. Otherwise, the building will become shaky. So life is also very shaky if our foundations are not equal, solid foundation kind of a thing. In fact, philosophy is also known as one of the foundational subjects. Philosophy, history, and mathematics, arithmetic particularly, are the foundational subjects because they lay down the most general conceptions which can be applied everywhere. You can't history any subject without history. You can't study anything in sciences without mathematics. And mathematics you can't study without philosophy, because law of contradiction and everything is there in the philosophy only. And even in history also, the foundation of history lies in the philosophy only. So, so these three subjects are very foundational in nature. And their foundation is something which is firm, nyas. So some nyas, sannyas can be found in only these three terms: mathematics, history, and philosophy. So everywhere else you are attached, like in economics, you are attached. So attached with certain things, but then philosophy comes up to help that how to go into the some kind of non-attachment and not detachment kind of a thing. Non-attachment is a very profound term, because we say that there is a hydrogen gas which is not green. It means that hydrogen gas has some color other than the green, or that hydrogen gas has no color at all. So it is this kind of predicament in which we are there, non-attachment. Detachment means that I have got nothing to do. There are so many things which are happening, but these days, because we are all living in the globalized world, any war, any kind of thing which is happening anywhere in the world, we all get affected by it. And it depends on our ways of understanding how far can we deal with it. So these are some of the reflections that I have about it. Personal wisdom and also the universal kind of a thing has also been analyzed. So personal means not any kind of what we call forensic lab kind of a testing. In the West, there was a philosopher, John Locke. He said that there is a personal identity. That means you can test it in the forensic lab. So people take up the DNA aspect and other samples and many things just to get the actual identity of the person. So it's a lab kind of a testing. And then there is a counter philosopher like David Hume. He said that there is nothing like personal identity kind of. Every time you are a new person. So Sanjay Gandhi case, for instance, he said that after making Gandhi, Giri, and other such films, now he is a completely changed man. But the court said that no, nothing doing. You have done the crime, and it is there. on you, and you have to undergo the punishment aspect of it. So personal identity and then the social identity, which is embedded in various fabrics, various relationships, and which are changing over time. That has to be understood. And my suggestion is that let us take these concepts in a very dynamic way. And there are various, several variants which come up when we develop it. So thank you very much, Dr. Alok and Professor Balramji, and all the panelists who have just heard of it. If there is any question, query, I'll love to respond to that. Over to you, Dr. Alok.
Thank you, sir. And it was very nice to listen you. And you explored all the dimensions related to this topic. But as we have 15 minutes more, without taking a delay, I will directly invite Professor Balram Singh sir for chair comment. Then we will take few questions.
So you mean you're saying there is no time for question?
Yeah, we will take the questions. Yeah.
I think we should take the questions first and briefly. Let's address them briefly so that maybe I will have some time to say a few things. So there is a question that I had asked that can come later on.
Yeah. I have seen Professor Balram Singh ji that you wanted that poor are detached to need. Why? And let me be honest with you that when we studied economics, we were talking of desire, want, demand. But while developing the conceptualization of needonomics, I have divided this stuff into needonomics and greedonomics, need and greed. And so for need is concerned, it's a very dynamic concept and based on many factors. And it is basically related with personal evolution. If we talk about our own needs, there was a time when we were having no mobiles, but today if internet is not there, we feel worried. But although at some time I was talking of digital detoxification is required because we spend a lot of time on that. But from that perspective, need, particularly for poor, let me honestly tell you, Ram Singh ji, that when talking in terms of poor people, rich people, or middle class, my concern as an economist is on middle class, how to stop them to be converted into poor. I can give you a number of evidences, but so far poor are concerned, it is because of not their detachment to need, but it is because of overpopulation. We cannot control poverty in our country because number of people are increasing. And if you study the family dimensions of the middle class and poor people, you will find a number of children in middle class families are lesser than the number of children in the poor families. So if at all they are detached to needs today, as you asked me a question, that is because of that number of children are more in their family. Another question you have asked me about basically yoga and sangha. It's also very important thing.
That was referred to Professor Shashi Tiwari ji, so you can skip that.
Okay.
Because he was talking about sangat jayate kama kamat krodha vijayate. So it was really more to her. So yeah, but thank you very much for your other comments. Shashi ji, maybe if she wants to say something about the Sangha and yoga. They seem to be putting people together, but one of them you said Sangat Jayate Kama, the other one, there are other people say Sang Shakti Vijetriyam. There are many other aspects of Sang that people get together. Bharat is also a Sang. So how do you, because we are talking about Bhagwad Gita, which is very broadly, you guys discuss so much fundamentals that really people can use it and in today's world. So Shashi ji, you want to say something? If you unmute it, I will hear more. Yes.
So your question was about yoga and sangam. What is the difference?
Yeah.
Both have the literal meaning is almost the same, because yog means to jorna, to add, and sang means also to take it nearby. But as is this 48th shlok in second chapter, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tektva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samobhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchate. So yoga is in the good sense, always it is praised, and Sangha is always not required, as it is. Without Sangha you should do, without and how it will be possible? Samatvam, balancing. Through balancing it will be possible that yoga will be united and Sangha will not be united with yoga. तो संग इज ए थिंग विच लिप्त हो जाता है, चिपक जाता है, एंड वो ठीक नहीं है. जुड़ना, स्वयं से जुड़ना, स्वयं से हटना, जब चाहे जुड़े जब चाहे हटे, तो वो प्रेज किया जाता है फिलॉसफी में. यही अर्थ है. और दोनों में
like buying the stock when there is a good profit, and don't buy it when this is not a good profit. So you have a freedom to take it or leave it. I mean, the reason I am asking these questions because this is general public. आप लोगों को तो
but I am surprised how you find out these questions. I am really amazed by your analysis.
No, this is important because people get stuck.
And you put like these words. This is a very great observation, I should say. Why I cannot find this?
हाँ, वो सत्संग की भी प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी, फिर लोग सत्संग नहीं कर पाएंगे. आप फिर वो बोले संयोग करते हैं, सत्संग नहीं करेंगे. तो समथिंग टू थिंक अबाउट, बिकॉज आप लोग विद्वान हैं और यू हैव सो मच एक्सपीरियंस. बट आई विल जस्ट मूव ऑन बिकॉज उन्होंने 15 मिनट कुल दिया था, अभी हमको लगता है 5 मिनट ही बचे हुए. तो
in Gita, yoga is very different. It is not Ashtanga yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate, yoga karmasu kaushlam. These are two definitions. If you will perform action without attachment, then it will be yoga. Then it will be yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushlam. And this yoga is kushalta, cleverness, very high thing for the work, for the person who is doing work. Kushalta isko कहते हैं. It is skilled. It is a skill if you can perform actions with yoga and without sangha. और संग तो कर्म फल का होता है, कर्म का नहीं होता.
शशि जी, पढ़ना
जैसे अभी डॉक्टर सिंह, हम लोग के तो बहुत से एक्शन
Balram ji, there is a question by
attachment के
for
होते
me.
हैं.
Yeah, please.
There is a question from Mr. Lakbir Singh about dialectics of freedom and necessity.
Yeah.
So he has asked me.
Yeah, it is also related to needonomics also in a way.
Yes, yes. So, in fact, if we look at the episode, and particularly the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about the Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. So here, there is a self which is embodied in all the relationships, in all the needs and even the greeds, which are there, essentially embodied ones. And then there is a transcendental self, the Sakshin kind of a thing. So these are the two levels of consciousness, which has been explored therein. So at one level, the person has the role of freedom, and at another level, there is a necessity. Now the question is how to work it out, how to appreciate the necessities in order to realize freedom. And that's why there are certain norms, certain practices that have to be followed during the war time. Though, of course, the first casualty in the war is the casualty of norms only. And it happens everywhere, it happens even today also. That's the first casualty, the casualty of the norms. And once the norms are broken, then everything else is broken therein. But in principle, Gita says that, one has to be, knowing about one's own self as the transcendental one or the uh, Sakshin, and then involved in everyday activities also at the level of embodied being as a soldier. What else could be that much of involvement? In fact, the other day we had a brief chat with Professor Balramji. He said that these philosophers only talk a lot. Then, whereas a scientist, the moment they come to the lab, they have to do the action. So, and recently I visited one hospital. I found that the moment you go there, you find that doctors are more active than the scientists. And if you go to the borders where soldiers are there, they are much more active. Because their life and their whether they will survive tomorrow or not is at stake, kind of a thing. So these are the different levels of embodied beings, but one has to understand these constraints, but keep in the mind to realize the absolute self, the free one, the transcendental self. So it is this dialectics which is perpetually been there. And I always say that there is no escape from it. So do not run away, because you have to appreciate the necessities and act in accordance with those necessities to realize freedom.
Thank you. Thank you. I think
That
Rajkumar has a question for you also.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Kumar had a question.
Yes,
Rajkumar,
please.
if you unmute
Unmute
it, you
yourself.
can hear better. If you unmute it, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice to hear all expert their views. I recently, when I am doing research in my as in Dr. Singh and Dr. RP Singh both pointed out, the scientists do when they go to the lab, they do work. So when I in recent 4 or 5 years, when I am doing research, then I found out that some of my results I could explain when I am explaining both side of that problem. If I am just concentrating on one side, I am not able to get the precise result or precise observation or precise inference of that particular experiment. So similarly, when Dr. Sasi Tiwari was saying that he doesn't know what is meaning of this dual force. So dual force is something like equilibrium force, the karma and the freedom. These are the two sides of the equation, and the detachment and attachment, you can say Dr. RP Singh said that detachment could be non-attachment. So non-attachment or attachment could be a dual force in between, which gives you a freedom to do your work, and as well as to get the freedom also at the same time. When you need freedom, you have to detach. When you need work to be done, then you have to be attached. So something like that. So can we interpret like this? Anyone can respond to?
Very, very quick response I can give you, that equilibrium is the term you have used, and between demand and supply, and there is always some kind of an equilibrium. I was a student of economics also, but not for a long time. And the first 10 lectures were delivered on equilibrium only. And finally, it was said that equilibrium can never be met. But you need the equilibrium, without which you just cannot begin a business. Demand and supply and everything else. Everything begins with the equilibrium, the notion. But equilibrium as such cannot be fully achieved, kind of a thing. So these polarities are there, but they are not, what is dual? Dual means that there are two substances, and they are, independent of each other, kind of a thing. This is what I have contested, that no, there are differences between them, but they are the differences only in the degree of their persistence, not of the kind. So this is just a kind of brief submission.
Okay.
Thank you. It's an interesting thing, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alok, can you, sorry, Rajkumar, can you highlight all the speakers? Because I think just only RP Singh is being targeted. Thank you. I think we don't have any more questions, except that maybe I have some observations, and Alok said I will have whatever few minutes. I was struck by Professor R.P. Singh's the last observation where you were talking about, physics without mathematics and math without philosophy. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. So I tried to extend it to philosophy without arguments. There is no real philosophy unless you have some arguments about it. Argument without fight. You cannot have really argument without having some fights. And fight without injury. You have to injure somebody, in whether it's a mental or physical or just intellectual. And injuries without death. You have to have some, it will mean only if there is a death. And that's the detachment versus attachment. So you have detached when the death is there, you are completely detached. Otherwise, you start with the physics and go to the philosophy and through all that. So that's one observation, because I think the idea for me, Gita, for the first time was when I tried to read it and it says Sanjay Uvach, and I didn't know who Sanjay is. I thought Sanjay was also a name of Krishna. And what I saw Sanjay Uvach, I thought, well, this is not. I thought about it for a long time. I was in 9th grade, and then I went to sleep because I couldn't understand it. So I think that issue remains, because whatever you all are saying with very deep wisdom, but then for ordinary person, how does this become? So I think Professor R.P. Singh also provided another very good example. He said scientists do work, philosopher maybe just talk. But then he said, the doctors work more. The moment you go there, they start working. And then you go to the border, they're always active. They're really at the watch out. I guess maybe that was the basic reason why Gita was spoken in the battlefield. So I think you got it right. It's not the scientists, it's certainly not the philosophers, it's not even the doctors. It's really the soldiers who have their thing at the bet. They have that at the altar. Their life is at the altar, and this is connects to that thing I was just talking about. Scientists and physicists and all that. Ultimately, you have to be willing. And then you said something about dharma. And so these issues are really, I can go on, and I don't want to. I want to only tell a story. Professor R.P. Singh knows that I come from a village. And in the village, people also think like that. Sometimes they don't have Gita Jayanti, but they have like morning Jayanti. Every morning, they have some conversation. So there is a story about Gita. It's written by Radha and the Parrot. Radha and the Parrot, the conversation written by Bhanu Narsimhan, who is a sister of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. And this goes back to when the Shiva was telling the story of this whole world, including Krishna. He just kind of brings in there to Parvati, and then Parvati kind of slept, and then the parrot was listening to it, or some bird was listening to it. So in this case, this parrot was says something, and the people in the village were very curious as to what is he saying. And so they asked a early morning wrestler. I also have done some little bit of wrestling, and looks like Professor Madan Goel also has done some wrestling. Looks like he's a wrestler. so he may have done some too. We have to get up in the morning, go 5 o'clock, and have the wrestling for an hour or two, and then come back with fully, completely engrossed in the dust. Completely. The wrestler is a wrestler. So they asked him, the wrestler guy goes early in the morning, the birds speak, when there is a quiet, he may know it. So they asked him, what is this bird is saying? ये बोली, ये bird क्या बोल रही? तो रेसलर कुछ देर सोचता है, बोलता है, बोल रहा है कि दंड मुकद्दर कसरत. ये बर्ड जो है वो बोला है दंड मुकद्दर कसरत. उसको बोले, अच्छा ठीक है कोई बात है. तो एक ये है, दिस इज लाइक हमारे शास्त्र वाले लोग जो हैं, शशि तिवारी जी के जैसे लोग, वो मतलब शास्त्र वाले लोग हैं, शास्त्र के आधार पे उसकी शक्ति के हिसाब से बोल दिया, ऐसे ही हुआ. फिर एक सेठ जी सुबह सुबह फेरी लगा के जा रहे थे, इकोनॉमिक्स वाले। तो उनसे पूछा कि सेठ जी भी बहुत घूमते रहते हैं, क्या बोलती है ये चिड़िया, क्या बोल रही है, आपको बहुत देखे सुना होगा आपने। तो उन्होंने कहा कि थोड़ी देर सोचे, बोलते हैं कि ये चिड़िया बोल रही है हल्दी मिर्चा अदरक। तो बोले अच्छा ठीक है भाई, सेठ जी बोल रहे हैं ऐसा, ये इकोनॉमिक्स के प्रोफेसर हैं, जो भी चाहें वो कह सकते हैं। तो इनके लिए नीडोनॉमिक्स की बात है तो नीडोनॉमिक्स सुनना पड़ेगा। फिर एक पंडित जी आ रहे थे उधर से, फिलासफी टाइप के लोग थे लगते मुझे। तो उनसे पूछा गया, पंडित जी आप तो ज्ञानी हैं, आप तो सब कुछ जानते हैं, आप बताइए चिड़िया क्या बोल रही। तो बोलते हैं कि ये बोल रही है धर्म रिलीजन कर्तव्य। बोले ये चिड़िया बोल रही धर्म धर्म रिलीजन कर्तव्य। प्रोफेसर आरपी सिंह का जो टॉपिक था। तो अब वो लोग जो समझ में आया तो समझ में आया। एक बूढ़ा माँ जी बैठी थी, वो ग्रैंड मदर, जब सुनी सबका, सुन के बोलती हैं कि भैया ये सब जो बोल रहे हैं ये अपने अपने हिसाब से बोल रहे हैं। ये चिड़िया ये बोल रही है कि अपना अपना मतलब, ये चिड़िया ये बोल रही है कि अपना अपना मतलब। तो अभी भी गीता का जो हम अध्याय सुन चुके हैं, उसमें चर्चा सुन चुके हैं, वो आप लोगों ने बहुत अच्छे से अपने अपने तरीके से बताया। हमको सोचना ये है कि और कितने तरीके हो सकते हैं जो हमारे अलावा भी हैं, और क्या हम उनको सबको एक बार फिलॉसफी के जरिए, और इकोनॉमिक्स तो सब, इकोनॉमिक्स का असली मतलब तो अर्थ होता है ना, अर्थ के जरिए और फिर शास्त्रों के जरिए उनको आगे समाहित करके उनको आगे बढ़ाएं। ऐसा उम्मीद है कि हम लोग पुनः फिर से इकट्ठा होंगे और फिर इस पर चर्चा करेंगे। आप मेरी कहानी को याद रखिएगा, मैं कुछ और बनाऊंगा अगली बार जब आप लोग।
अगर 2 मिनट आप दें तो आपकी जो तर्क वाली बात है तो उसको मैं शास्त्र सम्मत बता सकती हूँ।
नहीं नहीं, बिल्कुल शास्त्र सम्मत मान लीजिए।
निघंटु में निरुक्त जो आपने सुना होगा, उसमें कहा गया है कि जब ऋषि लोग जाने लगे, पहले वेद के मंत्र उन्होंने प्रकट किए, उसके बाद थोड़ा थोड़ा बताते रहे, फिर वो जाने लगे। जब जाने लगे तो किसी ने पूछा कि अब हमें अर्थ कौन बताएगा पृथ्वी पर। तो यास्क ने कहा कि अब तर्क ही देवता होगा, तर्क ही ऋषि होगा। ऋषिम तर्कम अवच्छन्न, तर्क को ही ऋषि समझो। तो जो आप कह रहे हो तर्क से करना चाहिए, वो तो पहले ही वो कह चुके हैं कि अब तो वही हमारा रास्ता दिखाएगा।
जी जी,
लॉजिक और
उसी
बहस और ये
उसी
सारी बातें,
उसी तर्क के
संसद
अनुसार
भवन
कांग्रेस
और हमारी सब
उसी तरह
सभाएं।
शशि जी उसी तर्क के अनुसार कांग्रेस पार्टी और भाजपा डेली लड़ाई करते हैं, खूब तर्क करते हैं।
हाँ, तो घरों में बाहर सब जगह तर्क कर सकते हैं।
जी 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 जी, वो
शास्त्र सम्मत है।
ऋषि मुनि हम लोग फंसा के चले गए, निघंटू में बता के चले गए।
बिल्कुल।
चलिए खैर, अब इस चर्च की मतलब हम नहीं चाहते थे और आगे तर्क किया जाए। मैं तो सिर्फ कहा गया, उन्होंने हमसे आलोक ने कहा था कि मैं कुछ कमेंट करूं आखिरी में, तो मैंने कर दिया। और आप लोगों को अगर बुरा लगा हो तो बहुत अच्छी बात है, अगर अच्छा लगा हो तो बुरा लगा हो
तो
तो
आपको
अच्छी बात, मतलब कि आप उसके बारे में और सोचेंगे। मेरा ये कहने मतलब, आप लोग विद्वान लोग हैं, अगर बुरा लगता है तभी तो कोई व्यक्ति सोचता है, अच्छा लगता है तो फिर तो जाके आराम करते हैं। तो अगर बुरा लगा तो उसको और अच्छी बात है, बुरा अगर अच्छा लगा होगा तो फिर तो वाह वाह, तो हम लोग अपना बातें करेंगे। ठीक है, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आलोक, सब टू यू।
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका। और जैसा आपने कहा कि इस पे और चर्चा करने की आवश्यकता है, फिर एक बार हम लोग अ, आएंगे, एक साथ एकत्रित होंगे, सभी विद्वानों को हम लोग बुलाएंगे और फिर उस कहानी के आधार पर फिर कितना मॉडिफिकेशन हुआ है उस पर भी हम लोग चर्चा करेंगे।
ठीक है।
भगवत गीता अपने आप में इतना यूनिक है, जैसे हम लोगों की चर्चा टीसीएन मीडिया पर आपके माध्यम से चल भी रही है, कि उसको विज्ञान की दृष्टि से अर्थ, दर्शन, धर्म, कर्म, भक्ति, हर प्रकार से हम देख सकते हैं। और चर्चाओं का समागम है भगवत गीता, इसीलिए आज दुनिया में सबसे पॉपुलर ग्रंथ में और सबसे उपयोगी ग्रंथों में ये गाना लिया जाता है। आप सब इसमें केएसएस टॉक के इस अंक में आप सब उपस्थित रहे, आप सबका हृदय से धन्यवाद। पुनः अगले महीने किसी और विषय पर हम लोग उपस्थित होंगे। ईमेल, व्हाट्सएप इत्यादि विभिन्न माध्यमों से आप तक सूचनाएं पहुंच जाएंगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।